Alright, so I recently got access to the Mirror's Edge closed beta and got a chance to play through it. Um, so I just wanted to give a quick video demonstrating kind of some of the gameplay, some of my thoughts, and just kind of what I thought about the game based on this short segment that I got to play. Um, I figure I should lead with the fact that yes, I did play the first Mirror's Edge, and I was one of the people that loved that game. It was very love it or hate it type of game, but like I said, I was one of those people that found it pretty interesting. So, as you can imagine, general thoughts of Catalyst is good. I mean, it's pretty impressive. I um, I got pretty much what I was expecting. One of the reasons that I like Mirror's Edge so much is just that I think it has a really impressive art direction, and it's just got really tonally appropriate music. The environments are really interesting. The kind of modern design of everything and contrast of colors and stuff like that. I just think it's a really cool art design. Just watching the trailers for this game, it was like it's kind of breathtaking to me. That may seem kind of silly, but I the like I said, the art direction on this game is just quite fantastic. But obviously, game can't get by on its um, art direction alone. No matter how pretty it is, it obviously has to be fun. And where does this game kind of go in terms of gameplay? How is it like the first one? It plays fairly similarly. You're not gonna really find too much, at least in the beta, that you didn't find in the first game. There are like RPG style upgrades. Um, Initially, I was actually a little bit annoyed by this because while it was cool to um, have things to unlock, I was like that feature just making your character stronger as the game goes on. I found myself having to unlock abilities that you started the first game with. Now, I guess that makes sense, sort of, in the sense that this game is supposed to be a prequel. So maybe it would make sense that Faith doesn't have certain abilities yet. But things like being able to roll after a particularly high jump is something that has to be purchased with your skill points, which seems kind of odd to me. Like, I feel like they set Faith up as someone that obviously has experience, so it seems a bit odd that she can't do that from the side. I mean, from the get-go. It's kind of, it's a bit jarring, but I mean, you can pour your point into it pretty quickly, so I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Um, as far as the free running goes, it's pretty much the same as it was in the last game. Um, it flows really well. Um, they give you kind of a run button now, which is kind of weird. It's almost like kind of a dash. Um, there are some new kind of parkour elements like pipes where like when you grab them, she'll just swing around the pipe and go to the other side of the building. That's kind of a cool little feature that I noticed. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but um, you, while running, obviously that's still in there. The kind of mechanic in the first game where you could run up a wall, turn around, jump onto the wall behind you, and then run up that one. Um, that's in here again, but that's one of those abilities that needs to be purchased. Um, so again, a little odd, but nothing too drastic. Um, Combat is something that they did tweak in this game. Before you could steal guns and use them if you wanted to. In this case, that is no longer possible. The game kind of encourages you to just run past enemies. It encourages you to definitely keep running because while you've maintained your speed, you can't be hit by bullets, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but let's go with it for the sake of keeping momentum. Um, but there are some instances in which the game kind of stops and forces you to fight, and I think that might just be because this is kind of the tutorial and it's kind of teaching you how to fight. Like, this is just the early beginning of the game in the beta. So I think it's just teaching you kind of how to fight, so that's why they force you to. But in that case, it gets a little bit difficult because there are enemies that will block your attacks, and so you kind of need to come at them with speed or by jumping off of something. And sometimes they seem to frame these fights in kind of open areas, so it almost doesn't really make that much sense because it's kind of like, okay, well, there's nothing I can jump off of, there's nothing I can run against, so you kind of just have to run in, slide, kick them, then punch them, like, and just kind of repeat that. At least that's what I experienced. Maybe there's some much better way to do that that I haven't found yet, but I towards the end I started just trying to find something that I could just jump off of to get some momentum or kind of do a special combat attack. One thing of note, unless I'm delusional and don't remember things right, they did change the button layout for combat. If I recall correctly, it was attached to the trigger on the last game. In this game, it's mapped to the face buttons, which takes a little bit of getting used to. If you played the first game, I kept kind of running into people instead of punching them, which was kind of awkward at first, but eventually you get used to it. Also worth noting, this game is much more open world than the last game, whereas the other one was missions and then just mission, and you go from one area to the next. Everything kind of takes place in an open world. You still have the fact that when you're doing story missions, like, you can get locked into like a level. There's one building that was shown in one of the trailers that you do one mission in there, and as far as I know, you can't access it outside of that story mission. The open world is interesting. There is fast travel in the game, though I don't think there's any way to use it in the beta. But the little loading screens are like, you can go over here and activate fast travel. I'm like, okay. But honestly, I don't know how much bigger the city is going to be. I imagine it will be bigger in the final game. But at the way it was in the beta, I didn't even feel a need to fast travel anywhere, which is a good compliment for a game like this, because I was like, I don't really need to fast travel. Like, this is fun. I enjoy running around. In fact, towards the end, when I'd basically done everything in the beta, I was like, well, I've got 2 more days or so to play it. I want to get, kind of the most out of this. I want to play it while I have the chance, but I didn't really have anything to do. So I actually just kind of found myself running around the city, picking like a checkpoint on the other end and just running there. Like, it's kind of like, I actually found kind of enjoyment just kind of piddling around in the city, just doing various things and just doing the parkour even without a real central goal. And I think that's really good praise for the game, because it indicates like the parkour system and just the world is a fun place to be in. The city that's presented in the beta is not quite as aesthetically remarkable as some of the stuff that I've seen in the trailers. There weren't really super jaw-dropping moments in the beta, but there were still some cool places to explore, and yeah, it was interesting. One of the things that the game does is provide you with different side missions as well. Some of these involve taking just, you're a runner. You're supposed to deliver information in a society where information is restricted. And so sometimes you have to make these deliveries. And from a gameplay perspective, it makes sense. From a story perspective, it does not really, because you pick up these delivery items, and you have about like 40 seconds to a minute to get to your destination. And usually that's not a problem, but sometimes it can get really weird because the game's runner's vision, which is kind of like your guide, your autopilot telling you where to go, will take you in really obscure directions. And based on the game's little hints in the loading screens, this seems to be intentional because it'll tell you the runner's vision will just show you one way to your objective, not the best way. Um, but you really don't usually have time when you've got about 30 seconds to get to your destination to figure out a better way. Um, Occasionally, you will see an obvious, like, okay, that's obviously the better way to go. But the runner's vision consistently will send you near the direction of pipes that you have to climb up, and that will consistently like kill your movement. So I've had to find myself like replaying several of the delivery missions over and over again to to find a point where I could find another way up without climbing up the pipe, because that would always kill my time and I would like never make it. And even in the even when you're not doing delivery missions, the game constantly sends you up pipes. I don't know why it's designed to do that. I think it's supposed to encourage you to seek alternate, faster routes, but it could get a little irritating because sometimes I just kind of wanted to go to my destination without having to think, okay, what's the fastest way to do this? Like, just run and go. Um, and that's where the game really shines, when you can just pick a destination on the map and just run and not have to think about anything, where I'm going. And it's the best way to do that is to follow the runner's vision. But when it sends you up a pipe and you just have to sit there and climb up the pipe for like 5 seconds and then get back, it kind of kills the momentum. So I understand what they were going for here, but I'm not really in love with it. I can't fault it too much because, like I said, I understand the intention, but it kills the momentum. As for the story, I won't say too much about it. You don't really. It's not. This is not, Mass Effect or something, but it's pretty interesting. There are some new characters that you meet, and I would say that they're already much more interesting than the characters from the first Mirror's Edge. So that's really good. One of the characters who you meet, Nomad, he sends you on some side missions, and it's kind of funny because he's a graffiti artist, and I'm just kind of sitting there looking at him thinking, well, this is basically Delsin from Infamous, but I like Delsin from Infamous, so we can let that one slide. So there's new characters. The story kind of involves, it's a little unclear at this point, just kind of Faith learning to run again after she's had quite a bit of absence from running. And kind of getting herself involved in kind of the machinations of this, totalitarian government, which obviously puts her at odds with the government officials, law enforcement, all that kind of stuff. Though the enemies you seem to be fighting in this game seem to be more just employees of this corporation rather than like the police in the first game. And I think if that stays, that's a smart touch, because it felt a little weird being the heroine and like pushing cops off buildings in the first game, like that, or shooting that. Like, it just didn't seem fitting with the character per se, because like you understand that this is a totalitarian government and information is restricted, and okay, like people should have the right to exchange this information or whatever, but killing people to do that like seemed to send kind of a mixed message. So it kind of works a little bit better. I mean, yeah, you can still push people off buildings, you can't shoot them anymore, but it's a little bit easier to swallow when it's kind of like, oh, it's a member of a corrupt organization, instead of these are cops just trying to do their job, and they really wish you would stop pushing them off buildings. So it's a little bit better in that regard. I should also mention, I kind of forgot, kind of got sidetracked with the runner's vision in the story, but other side missions include like taking down monitoring towers, I believe is kind of what they are. I'm not exactly 100% sure what the game called them, but basically you disarm these towers, and then KrugerSec, the company, goes after you, and so you've got this it's kind of like you've got this range of their vision, and you kind of have to escape or get to a safe house. So those are kind of interesting. There's dashes, which are just basically time trials, get to this certain location, see how fast you can get there. There are billboards, which are just kind of locations where it's like, see if you can get to the top. So runner vision gets kind of turned off, and you go, okay, how do I scale this building and get to the top and hack this billboard? Again, it's a little bit like Infamous in that regard. Kind of, you spray paint the billboards in Infamous, but this is more kind of a puzzle, trying to figure out how to get up there. I don't think I'm missing any other side missions. There are side missions that have plot to them. Like I mentioned, the Nomad missions, he kind of introduces some stuff to you. He introduces you to the collectibles in the city. So that's kind of a side mission in and of itself. From what I could see, there's no way to mark the collectibles on your map, though. So you just have to find them as you play through the game. I think finally, what I'd like to mention is just some of the quote-unquote multiplayer elements. I didn't really touch on these too much because, if I'm honest, they don't really interest me. But there is... You can basically, from what I understand, just set up like a start point in the city, set up an end point, and then challenge people to beat your time from point A to point B. I played a couple of these. I didn't create any, but I played a couple of these, and they're basically just kind of like the dashes. See how fast you can get there. Nothing too extraordinary. But they're there if you want to make them. I think that's pretty much all I had to say on the game. Overall, like, I was loving this. Despite the kind of issues with runner's vision or whatever, I just love being back in this world. It's a really cool world. The City of Glass is just so well crafted. There are the occasional things where it's like, why is there a random pipe here? Like, that doesn't seem like that. It seems there are times where it seems a bit organic, but that also might kind of be the point, just this is kind of a weird city, but it's just a cool city to be in, and I'm glad that I got access to this beta because the game was pushed back until June. But I'm really looking forward to when this game comes out in that time.